Okay, good afternoon everybody. My name is Steve Bannerman, and what I'm hoping to accomplish with this video is to show you how to use the Rosetta Salt password manager, how to get started using that. And what is Rosetta Salt? Well, it's a password manager that I built and deployed into AWS. And if you're a technical person and interested in any of the details related to that, on the Cloud Doc website, you can see that there's an article, a featured article on that site at the moment called Rosetta Salt, and it describes how to build your own password manager and deploy it into AWS. And Rosetta Salt is that password manager that I built and deployed into AWS. And at the moment, as long as the costs in AWS don't get too high, making that available, at least the basic licenses for it are available for free, so you can give this product a try, and if you find it useful, you can keep using it for free at that basic level. Okay, so hopefully that's some context for what it is I'm trying to accomplish with this video. And the way we would get started with this, you can go to app.rosettasalt.org, or you can click on this button in the top right hand corner of the rosettasalt.org website. And let me just pause for a moment. I'm going to make sure everything's cleared out of the browser and that we're all set to go. Everything's clean. It'll be the same scenario that you'll encounter. Okay, I think we're all set. Apologize for that. I really just wanted to make sure that all the data was cleared from the browser and the user was reset in the Cognito service and that sort of thing to try and emulate exactly what it is you would encounter. Alright, so again, on this Rosetta Salt application button, the first thing we're going to encounter when we're first getting started is this, what's called an Amplify screen from AWS, and they've provided this framework called Amplify that allows developers to interact with the Cognito service. And I've left the colors the same, although I've changed the text, so you can see that it's Rosetta Salt that this is for, but I've left the AWS colors so that you know that it's the Cognito service that you're dealing with. And since we don't have an account yet, we're going to go ahead and create this account, and I'm going to use my secondary email address, and I'm going to enter a password that has to be, I think, 10 characters long. Needs to have a number and a symbol. And then I'm going to use this temporary phone number that I established with Google Voice. And just as a bit of a side note, you don't have to enter your actual phone number while you're doing this, but I would recommend, because it won't be used during this process, but I would recommend entering a valid phone number, so that if you forget your password for this Rosetta Salt Cognito service, that you'll be able to reset it by having Cognito send something to your phone number to reset either your password or possibly changing your email address. In any case, I would recommend using your real number. I'm using a temporary number that is real, but will be deleted by the time this video is put up on YouTube. Okay, so I'm going to create an account. Okay, when I did that, I'm going to come over to my Yahoo email account. I've gotten an email, and this email is from the Rosetta Salt Cognito service in AWS, and it's giving me a code, a verification code that I can enter. So I'll enter that, hit confirm, and that's going to take me into the application. I might just pause here for a second and tell you a little bit about what happened there. That established an account with the Rosetta Salt Cognito service, and it issued a Cognito token to the Rosetta Salt application running in this browser. And that Cognito token is going to be good for 30 days. So I'll talk about it a little bit later. Hopefully it'll make more sense then. But you won't have to do that email address and password authentication with Cognito every day. You just need to do that once a month. Okay, so once you get to this stage, this is the Rosetta Salt application itself, and this explains a little bit about the two-phase authentication. The second phase of the authentication is just to make sure that you can receive an email at this account. And what it's going to do, as it's going to explain here, is it's going to send you a claim value. And so we've already got one email in our account. Pretty soon we should get a second email. There it is. So we've now received our token, or this email communicates that the server has received your token request, and it's received it from this device. And if you just look at the first 5 characters there, A5, B, 9, B, those match these characters over here with the device identifier. And here's the code. So I'm going to copy the code, and I apologize for these ads over on the right. I rarely use this Yahoo email account, and I don't seem to be able to get rid of these ads. In any case, I'm going to copy that claim code and come back over here, paste it in, and if you're so inclined, you might want to make sure that this device identifier, at least the start of it, the prefix, matches what it is you're getting in this email over here, just to make sure that you're not getting an email from some other device that you're not expecting to get an email from. Okay, so I've entered the claim code. I'm ready to claim this Rosetta Salt token. Hit the OK button. Once I'm done with that, now I'm into the application. I've passed through the first 2 phases of authentication, and I will talk about that later. I'll circle back and talk about sort of the life cycle of those tokens and maybe what your daily usage of this application might look like. But I'll skip that for now, and we'll jump into getting started with the application proper. So we've got steps 1, 2, and 3 up here at the top. What we're normally going to do when we enter this application at the beginning of any day is we're going to have to get that Rosetta Salt token, like I just talked about, or just showed you. Then we're going to have to enter our source passcode. So if you notice here, up here at the top, saved hash value, there's nothing there. This source hash value is going to change as I type my source passcode. So you don't have to worry about that too much, other than you can see that for every character you enter, it generates a new hash value. And that hash value, sort of the property of hash values, is that they're very different for every character that you enter, even if the character itself is very similar. So this is the first time I'm using this. Once I've recorded my source password, I want to go down to the bottom left here and update saved hash value. Okay, once I do that, it records that saved hash value so that in the future this page is able to give me some hints as to whether or not I've actually entered the proper source password. Okay, so just to illustrate that, if I take away one character, you can see that the 2 hash values there are totally different. And I would just underscore for you as well that these saved hash values and source hash values really have nothing to do with what ends up being used to derive your password for your target source, your target site, whether that's your bank account or your utility or whatever. This is really just a feature of the application to try and help you make sure that you entered the proper source password. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so that's step one of our typical workflow, or at least the start of every day. I would have to enter that source password value. The lock and the color here will indicate to me that, okay, yes, I've got the right password, so I'm going to go on to my next page here. So I've already pre-entered a couple of sites for you just to see what it would look like, but you wouldn't have any there, so let me go ahead and delete those. Okay, so when you come in, you're going to, for the first time, you're going to see this, no sites. And really, to use this steady state, you're going to have your 20, 50, 80, 100 target sites. Here, you're just normally going to go and choose one and click the next button. But since we're having to get set up, we need to add our first site. So maybe we could say our first site is going to be Wells Fargo, a bank, https www.wellsfargo.com, and let's just say that my user ID is Bannerma. It's not, by the way, but just for argument's sake, let's pretend that's the case. Hit OK. Now I've got a Wells Fargo target site. I can choose that and click the next button. So when I click the next button, the information on top here, if I select that, you can see a few things. The name, of course, should match the name that you've entered. The target site Salt, I think that bears mentioning a little bit. That is a server-side Salt value, and that is intended to be combined with your client-side source password value. And when the two of those get put together, they and a few rules get used to put together this target password value. So I'll show you what that is in a moment. But let's first of all show you how you might use this in a steady state usage of this tool. And I'm going to click the link and copy that link. I'm going to go up to my browser. I'm going to open a new tab, paste in my value, www.wellsfargo.com. I'm going to come up with a login screen, which is what we would expect. So now I'm going to come back here, hit the user ID, go back to my Wells Fargo tab, paste, Control V, and I've got my user ID. And then I'm going to go back here, click password, password copied, and I'm going to paste it in here. Okay, if you use the save username, then presumably it will save the Bannerma username for you, and you won't have to enter that again next time you come back. So again, the link and the user ID are buttons you can take advantage of, sort of optional. The password is the one that you're for sure going to want to use if you're going to be using this product and find it useful. Okay, so if I click that password button again, come back here, or maybe go to a new tab, and inside of a Google or the Firefox homepage, just paste. We can see that it looks mostly to be fairly random. It's not random actually, but it is something that should be secure for you, because again, it's based on that source word value based on this target site value, as well as some rules. And if you open up on the bottom left here, you can say update site info. You can see some of the rules which you can configure, or you can just leave them as they are by default. I think I've picked some reasonable defaults for you when you create the target site, but if you want to configure that on your own, before you start using this password, you can come in and update that information. And I guess while I'm at it, I'll mention that if, for example, Wells Fargo forces you to change your password every 6 months, you could go ahead and update the site salt. And this just explains, why you would want to do that. Make sure you really want to do that. And if you hit OK, then that goes ahead and changes the site salt on the server, and then brings that back down onto the client for you. So that now if I enter, or if I click that password, come back over here and paste it right beside the other one, you can see that it's totally different. Your source password remained the same, but your target password is now totally different. Okay, so if I unwind a little bit here, get rid of some of these emails, and come back out of that detail about that target site. Now I might want to add another site, let's say Bank of America instead of Wells Fargo. And let's say here that instead of Banner Ma, it's Banner Man. And I hit OK. Now I've got a second target site. You can come over here, click next, and come to the site detail. Of course, the site salt should be totally different. It is. You can see that I've got the target site link, user ID, and password ready to go. Okay, so if I go ahead and click on the link, repeat this process one more time just so you see it done the second time. Open up that page, copy the user ID, come back, copy the password, and if I save the online ID, then I wouldn't need to, on this device or on this browser, I wouldn't need to copy the user ID anymore. Okay, so hopefully that showing you that second time solidified the understanding a little bit more. And I guess if I can show you again that the password is totally different once again. Okay. Alright, so just in closing on the video, that's how you get started. Personally, I have about 80 or 100 different sites that I'm keeping track of my password with this Rosetta Salt tool. So you'd go ahead and incur the one-time cost of getting all those set up, and once you're using it steady state, then you would start here, enter your source password in the morning, come in, choose Wells Fargo, for example, come in, use the information like I showed you, come back out, maybe just leave the page here, leave the tab open in your browser, so that maybe throughout the day you want to come in, and later on in the day you need to go to Bank of America, you can just go here without having to enter your source passcode, password. I would say if you're using it on a public machine, you'd probably like to, or you would definitely want to go back here, either get rid of your source passcode, or even better yet, just log out of Rosetta Salt. Okay, if you're on a publicly accessible browser, you don't want other people having access to all of your passwords, of course. So if you're on that public machine, or if you're on a private machine and you come in the next day and you go to come back into this Rosetta Salt application, you, for example, open it up again, it's going to recognize that the Rosetta Salt token that you have is not valid and request that you actually go and get a new one. So we'll go ahead and do that. That'll result in an email being sent to that account. So I can enter that, get a new Rosetta Salt token, be ready to go. Type this in once for the day or once for the usage on this public computer, if that's what it is. Work until that lock shows me the correct number of characters, turns blue, and then I'm ready to use it again. Okay, so I want to reiterate, if you're using it on a public computer, make sure it'd be handy to be able to use this to get your password that you don't remember but you want to be secure and you're traveling somewhere. It'd be handy to be able to do this, but just make sure you come in and log out explicitly. If it ever happened to remain open for a day, that token will expire at the end of the day, and somebody wouldn't be able to use the information past the end of that day, past the end of that 12-hour period. But if you leave it open in a public browser and somebody's able to access that during that 12-hour period, they would in fact be able to use your target information. But if you, for example, close the tab, that will have the same effect. Right, if I go to app.rosettasalt.org, come back in here, the token is still valid, the Rosetta Salt token is still valid when it loads the app, but I would have to enter my source password value. So you're going to be safe to either close your tab or go up here and explicitly log out of Rosetta Salt. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a picture of what would happen on a daily basis. Maybe come into work in the morning, open a tab, or you try and use the app and you run into a problem because the token is invalid. You end up back at this screen. You click OK, you get the claim code from your email, and then you're good for the next 12 hours. However, once a month or so, you're going to need to log in at the Cognito level, the first phase of authentication, and that's because the Cognito token, every time that you, for example, if I open a new tab again, app.rosettasalt, I run that application again. What you don't see behind the scenes there is that the Cognito token that is associated with this app.rosettasalt.org gets checked. Is it still valid? Can I refresh that? Is it still within that 30-day window? And if it is, it does get refreshed, and we skip past that first phase of authentication. But once a month, it's going to look like this. I mean, if I close the tab, open it up again, I'm going to end up with this because my Cognito token for Rosetta Salt has expired. It can't be refreshed anymore, so I'm going to need to log in once more. And assuming that I can remember my password after 30 days, if I make a mistake like that, if I can remember the password that I can get back in, I get back to this Rosetta Salt token stage, the second phase of authentication. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully it gives you a good feel for sort of the life cycle, the 30-day window where you can use that Cognito token, the 12-hour window where you can use the Rosetta Salt token, and then within that window where you can use Rosetta Salt application to primarily go to a target site, get its password, use that password to log into that site, but initially to get things set up, get your target sites set up and configured properly. Okay, hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, feel free to ask and I'll do my best to answer them. And have fun using the application. Thanks very much. Bye.